Right. So today we're diving into AI and cognitive science.
Okay.
And
Good.
we're looking at this paper about Centaur.
Mm-hmm.
It's this AI model
Right.
that's supposed to be like a unified model of human cognition.
Yeah, I've seen this paper, and it's really fascinating.
Yeah. And we're going to like go deep into the architecture and the training data, like all that stuff. Let's really break it down.
Well, there's a lot of hype right now about AI replicating human cognition.
Yeah.
So it's really important to, take a critical look at these models. And one of the things that's always been a kind of a holy grail in cognitive science is this idea of domain general models, right?
Okay.
Models that can learn and perform tasks across lots of different areas.
Right.
And Centaur is claiming to do just that. So
Okay.
if this is actually successful, it could really revolutionize how we understand the human mind.
Okay.
Pretty big implications.
Yeah. So let's look at the paper.
Okay.
It says that they basically started with this massive language model called Llama 3.170B.
Right.
And then they fine-tuned it on this data set called Psych 101.
Yeah, Psych 101.
So what is that?
Well, so Psych 101 is like this massive collection of human behavioral data.
Okay.
And it comes from, get this, 98 different cognitive psychology experiments.
Okay.
They've got over 1.4 million participant choices in there.
Okay.
So it covers a whole bunch of stuff.
Yeah.
Learning, decision-making, memory, reasoning.
Yeah, I mean, it's like...
It's huge.
Yeah, like they're giving this language model like a crash course in human psychology.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah, and the crazy thing is they didn't even have to completely revamp the whole language model.
Yeah.
They used this really clever technique called Q-lore-A, which basically lets you add new parameters without completely blowing up the size of the model.
Okay.
And so they only added like 0.15% new parameters to this 70 billion parameter model.
So it's like they're not just brute forcing it.
No.
They're like strategically
very elegant.
Refining it.
Yeah.
Right? Okay.
It's very targeted.
But the big question is, how well does this thing actually work?
Right.
Like, does it really capture human cognition?
Well, the results are pretty interesting.
Okay.
They say that Centaur outperforms both the original Llama model and a bunch of these handcrafted cognitive models that are very specific to certain tasks.
Okay.
And they tested it on all sorts of tasks, right, from the Psych 101 data set.
Okay. Yeah.
So one example is this two-step task where participants have to make choices about spaceships and aliens to try to find treasure.
Okay.
And they found that Centaur not only predicts the human choices, but it actually captures these tendencies that humans have towards something called model-based learning.
Okay, so it's not just matching the data, it's like it's actually reflecting how humans think.
It's reflecting how
humans think.
Humans think. Okay.
Yeah.
Wow. What other examples?
So they've got this other one called the Horizon task.
Okay.
Where people are playing this slot machine game.
Okay.
And they found that Centaur accurately predicts how humans explore and how sensitive they are to like different reward horizons.
Okay.
And then they even tested it on a grammar judgment task.
Okay.
Which is where you have to decide if a sentence is grammatical or not.
Yeah. Okay.
And again, Centaur's performance was really close to what humans were doing. So it's working across all these different tasks.
Yeah.
Right. I mean,
it really is.
It seems like it's kind of getting at this domain general.
Like its lifeability.
Right.
Yeah.
It's not just fitting the data. It's actually making predictions about like how humans think.
Meaningful psychological predictions. Yeah.
So I'm curious, can it go beyond these specific tasks?
That's a great question.
Like can it generalize?
It's $1 million question.
Right. Like is it just memorizing patterns or is it really learning something about human cognition?
And so they actually tested that directly. They started by just tweaking the wording of the tasks.
Okay.
Like instead of using spaceships and aliens, they used like musicians or genies.
Okay.
And they found that even with those changes, Centaur still predicted the choices accurately.
So it's not just getting stuck on those specifically.
It's getting the concept. Yeah.
Okay.
And then they took it a step further.
Okay.
They tested it on this 3-armed bandit task called Maggie's Farm, which has a completely different structure than anything in Psych 101.
Right.
And even there, Centaur did a pretty good job of predicting what humans would do.
So it can adapt. It can adapt its knowledge to a new situation.
It seems like it can.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay, so.
And then they really pushed it.
Okay.
They tested it on a logical reasoning task, something that was completely absent from the training data.
Okay.
And surprisingly, it still made pretty good predictions.
So it's not just memorizing.
No.
It's like it's actually learning something fundamental. Right.
And you know, this is something that traditional cognitive models have often struggled with. But large language models, like the one Centaur is based on, they're actually really good at generalization.
Right.
So it seems like Centaur might have captured some underlying principles of cognition that can transfer across different areas.
This is.
And that raises a really interesting question, right? Like, what does this tell us about human intelligence itself?
Right.
Is there like a core set of principles underlying all of our different cognitive abilities? It's a big question.
Yeah. I mean, this is pretty mind-blowing.
It is.
We're not just talking about like some fancy trick, right?
At all.
It's like we're actually maybe glimpsing something really profound about how the human mind works.
Exactly. And we've only just begun to explore what Centaur can do.
Right.
In the next part of our deep dive, we're going to look deeper into how it actually works internally.
Yeah.
And we'll explore whether its internal representations actually resemble the human brain.
All right.
Stay tuned for that.
Cool.
Yeah.
So we saw that Centaur can like generalize to new tasks and stuff.
Yeah.
It's pretty amazing.
It is.
But I'm wondering, like, how deep does this understanding go?
Right.
Like, is there any evidence
that
Centaur is actually kind of thinking like a human brain?
Yeah. And that's what the researchers really wanted to dig into.
Okay.
So they didn't just look at, like, Centaur's behavior, right?
Right.
They wanted to see what was going on inside, kind of like peeking inside its brain.
Okay.
So they did these 2 neural analyses to compare Centaur's internal representations with actual brain activity data.
So they were trying to see if, like, the way Centaur is representing information is similar to how the human brain does it.
Yeah. Are there any parallels?
Okay.
So the first analysis
Yeah.
focused on fMRI data from that two-step task.
Right, the one with the spaceships and aliens.
Exactly.
Okay.
And they wanted to see if Centaur's representations could actually predict activity in different brain regions.
Okay.
And what they found was that Centaur's representations were actually better at predicting brain activity than the original llama model.
So hold on. Centaur, which was trained on like behavioral data, is somehow lining up with
it seems to
how the human brain processes information.
That's what the data suggests.
That's crazy.
It is pretty wild. And they found a similar thing in their second analysis, which used fMRI data from a sentence reading task.
Okay.
Again, Centaur's representations were better at predicting the brain activity.
So it's like...
And remember...
It's learned.
Centaur was never trained.
Something about how the brain works?
On neural data.
Just by learning to predict human behavior.
Yeah, it's like by learning to predict behavior, it stumbled onto some of the same computational principles that the brain uses.
That's incredible.
It's pretty amazing.
And this could really change things.
Oh, absolutely.
For cognitive science, right?
Yeah. I mean, imagine...
Instead of just relying on...
using models like Centaur.
Brain imaging studies.
Yeah.
Which are expensive.
To test hypotheses take a long time. We could use AI models like this to explore...
It's like a whole new tool.
The inner workings of the brain. That's huge.
For understanding the most complex organ in the human body.
Okay, so this is really exciting.
Yeah.
But I want to kind of step back for a second and think about the big picture.
Like, what are the practical...
what are the implications
of this? How could Centaur be used to actually solve
they talk about
real-world problems?
A few things in the paper.
Okay.
One area is, they call it in silico prototyping.
Okay.
Which basically means using Centaur to simulate experiments.
Okay.
So you could, like, test out different experimental designs and hypotheses.
Like virtually.
Virtually, before you actually run the experiment with real people.
Which would save a lot of time.
Yeah, it's much more efficient.
Yeah, okay.
And they even talk about, like, using AI systems like Centaur to help develop psychological theories. Like guiding data collection, identifying patterns in data.
So the AI
is even suggesting new research directions.
Active collaborator?
Yeah, they call it automated cognitive science.
In the scientific process?
It's a pretty crazy idea.
Wow. Automated cognitive science.
Yeah.
So, I mean, this is huge.
It is huge.
But we have to be careful, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Like with any powerful technology.
With great power.
There's always potential downside.
It comes great responsibility.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So what are some of the challenges?
Well, one big one is just making sure that these models are reliable and robust.
Right.
As they get more complex and incorporate more data, we need to make sure that they're not going off the rails.
We need to understand how they're making decisions.
Absolutely.
Make sure they're not, like...
Transparency is key.
Biased or anything.
Yeah, and explainability.
Right.
Especially when we're talking about using these models in sensitive areas like healthcare.
Right.
Or education.
Yeah, and I mean, this brings up a whole other question, right?
Yeah.
Like, what are the ethical implications?
Oh, that's a big one.
Of creating AI that can, like, understand and even influence human emotions and behavior.
This technology is used ethically.
That's a big conversation.
It's a huge conversation we need to be having.
Yeah, and it's one we need to start having now.
Yeah.
But I think it's important to remember that Centaur and this whole Psych 201 thing, they represent a huge step forward in our understanding of the human mind.
It's really amazing.
Yeah, it's pretty incredible.
With what's happening right now.
Yeah, and it shows the power of AI and cognitive science.
Combining these two fields.
Working together, right.
Yeah.
Like by combining the power of AI with the insights from psychology.
It's really powerful.
You can learn so much about how the brain works.
And this is just the start.
Right.
I mean,
it's just the beginning.
Who knows what's coming next. But it's going to be exciting.
Yeah, I can't wait to see what they do with Psych 201.
Yeah, me too.
All right, so in the final part of our deep dive, we're going to look at Psych 201 and some of the challenges of creating these powerful AI models and the implications of all this. So stay tuned. Okay, so we've seen like how Centaur is really pushing the boundaries of AI and cognitive science.
It's pretty amazing.
But it's clear that this is just the start, right?
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Like they're already working on Psych 201.
Right.
Which is this new data set that's going to be even bigger.
It's going to be huge.
And more diverse than Psych 101.
Yeah, they're really trying to expand on what they did with Centaur.
So what kind of advancements do you think we might see?
One of the big things they're focusing on
with this new data set
is incorporating more data on social and emotional processes.
Right, because that was kind of a...
Yeah, that was one of the limitations.
Limitations of Centaur, right?
Of Centaur. It didn't really capture those aspects of human cognition.
Those things.
Yeah.
Okay, so with Psych 201.
So with Psych 201, we could potentially see...
We can maybe see AI models that can...
understand
human emotions.
And respond to human emotions.
And social cues, right?
Yeah, social cues, all that stuff.
Like AI that can actually, like, imagine.
AI systems that could provide personalized support for mental health, right? Or help with conflict resolution, or even help us just navigate
social dynamics better.
Complex social dynamics.
Yeah.
I mean, that would be amazing.
That's huge. Yeah. So what else about Psych 201?
Well, another really interesting thing is they're going to include data on individual differences.
Okay.
So things like age, personality traits.
Right, because everyone thinks
cultural background.
A little differently.
Exactly. Human cognition is not one size fits all, right? We all think and learn in slightly different ways.
Right.
And that's influenced by all these different factors.
So Psych 201 could lead to...
So by including that data,
AI,
we might be able to develop
personalized and adaptive
AI models that are much more personalized and adaptive.
Okay.
Right.
Like educational software that adapts.
Yeah, imagine educational software that adapts to each student's learning style.
Yeah.
Or healthcare AI that takes into account your personality.
Takes your personality into account.
And your cultural background.
Yeah. Wow. Okay, so...
I mean, the possibilities are endless.
This all sounds amazing, but are there any potential challenges?
Well, of course, with any powerful technology.
With creating AI that is always potential downsides.
Yeah.
Yeah. What kind of challenges?
Well, one of the big ones is just making sure that these models are reliable.
Right. Right.
As they get more complex,
yeah,
we need to be really careful to make sure that they're
right.
still making accurate predictions.
They're not biased.
And that they're not biased. Exactly.
Yeah.
We need to be able to understand.
I need to be able to, like,
how they're making decisions.
look under the hood and see.
Yeah, transparency is key.
How they're working.
Transparency and explainability.
Yeah.
Especially in those sensitive areas we were talking about.
Yeah, and this kind of brings up, like...
And it also raises...
a whole ethical question, right?
A bigger ethical question, right?
Like, is it okay?
Yeah.
What are the implications?
To create AI that can
understand human emotions.
I can understand and potentially influence.
And influence human behavior.
Human emotions and behaviors.
Like, where do we draw the line?
Yeah, that's a big one.
Yeah.
That's a conversation we need to have as a society.
But I think it's important to remember that, like, Centaur and Psych 201...
I mean...
they represent a huge step forward.
They're really exciting development.
Right. Like, we're learning so much.
We're learning so much.
About how the brain works.
How we think, how we learn
it's a testament
to the power of AI and cognitive science working together.
It's amazing what happens when you bring these two fields together.
And this is just the beginning, right?
This is just the beginning.
Who knows what we'll discover.
Who knows what the future holds.
In the future.
But it's gonna be amazing.
Yeah, this has been an incredible deep dive.
It has been fascinating.
I mean, we've explored Centaur.
Yeah.
We've talked about Psych 201. We've talked about, like, the ethical implications.
The big questions.
I'm kind of in awe of all this.
It's mind-blowing. It really is. It's mind-blowing.
Yeah.
So thanks for joining us on this journey.
Thanks for having me.
Keep these minds curious, and we'll catch you.
Yeah, stay curious out there.
Next time for another deep dive.